Stop pretending you can afford this, Dad said sharply, his voice slicing through the polished air of the luxury apartment lobby. Every head in the marble hall turned toward us, realtor, tenants, even the concierge behind the desk. My father's words carried the same humiliation they always had, dressed neatly in arrogance and disappointment. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. Dad, I began, but my sister Megan cut me off with a laugh that was just loud enough to sting. Oh please, Avery, she scoffed, tugging her designer bag higher on her shoulder. You can't even pay your own phone bill. Why are we wasting this poor man's time? The realtor, a man in his late 20s, polite smile fading, looked between us, unsure whether to step in or stay silent. His hands fidgeted with the clipboard like he wanted to vanish. I stood there, forcing myself to breathe evenly. Every insult, every time they told me I'd never amount to anything, every sneer when I said I was building something, it all came crashing back in seconds. But not this time. Actually, I said calmly, I can afford it. Dad gave a dry chuckle. Oh, really? With what? Your tips? Don't embarrass yourself, Avery. Some people know their place in life, and you should too. The words hit like glass, sharp, cold, but I didn't flinch. I looked him dead in the eye and smiled. Funny thing, Dad. I stopped believing in places a long time ago. Megan rolled her eyes. Oh, here we go. The motivational speech. Are we done? I have dinner plans, with people who can actually pay their rent. The realtor cleared his throat nervously. Ma'am, he said carefully, turning toward me. Would you like me to show them your penthouse first or your second property down the street? For a moment, no one moved. My father's mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. Megan froze, her smirk sliding right off her face. The echo of the words, your penthouse, your second property, hung heavy in the air. I turned toward the realtor, my voice steady. The penthouse, I said softly. It's more private. As the words left my mouth, the look on my family's faces was something I'd waited years for, not out of spite, but survival. For once, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like the disappointment. I felt seen. Dad's jaw tightened. You're joking, he muttered. You're lying to make us look bad again. I met his glare. No, Dad. You did that all on your own. The elevator chimed. The polished gold doors opened, and I stepped inside first. My reflection stared back at me in the mirrored walls, a woman who had finally stopped apologizing for existing. Coming? I asked, keeping my voice light. Megan hesitated. Dad looked like he wanted to speak, but couldn't find the right insult to hide behind. They followed in silence. As the door slid shut, the faint reflection of their shocked faces disappeared behind me. For the first time in my life, I was the one walking ahead, not away from them, but beyond them. The elevator opened with a soft chime, and sunlight poured in like a spotlight. The penthouse stretched before us, wide, open, and breathtaking. Walls of glass revealed the skyline in golden afternoon light, the city sprawling endlessly below like a painting. Megan froze first, her phone slipping slightly in her manicured hand. Wait, this is yours, she stammered. I smiled faintly. Yes. I bought it last year. Dad walked in slowly, his polished shoes clicking against marble floors imported from Italy. His expression twisted between disbelief and anger, the kind a man wears when the world stops obeying his rules. He turned sharply to me. How? You didn't even finish college. You quit your job. You. I started my own company. I interrupted, my voice steady. It wasn't easy, but I did it without loans, without handouts, and without your help. He scoffed, shaking his head. Impossible. You were always the irresponsible one. Always chasing dreams that don't pay. Not everything I built was for your approval, I said quietly. The realtor, still standing by the door, cleared his throat politely. If you'll notice, sir, this penthouse includes a private elevator, rooftop garden, and skyline view. Ms. Porter also owns the adjoining suite, currently under renovation for her design studio. Megan blinked. You have a studio too? I nodded.
2, actually.
One here, one in LA. Her mouth parted slightly, disbelief flooding her expression. You moved to LA? I looked around the room, running my hand along the smooth counter. I didn't move. I expanded. Dad let out a low laugh, bitter, forced. All this, just to prove something to us. No, I said. To prove something to myself. He said nothing, but his eyes flickered with a pride he didn't want to admit. Megan tried to cover her shock with sarcasm. So, what, you're rich now? You think money changes who you are? I turned toward her, meeting her glare with calm precision. Money doesn't change who I am. It just changes how you see me. The silence that followed was heavy. The kind that forces people to see themselves clearly for the first time. The realtor smiled nervously, sensing the tension. Would you like to see the balcony, ma'am? It's one of the most exclusive views in the city. I nodded. Yes, please. He opened the sliding doors and the wind swept in, clean, crisp, carrying the scent of freedom I'd spent years chasing. The view stretched forever. Glittering lights, silver towers, the heartbeat of the city that had once ignored me. Megan stepped out beside me, whispering under her breath. I honestly thought you'd end up living with Dad forever. I looked at her. No anger this time. Just truth. So did he. Dad's reflection appeared behind us in the glass. His voice, low and uncertain, finally broke the silence. Avery, I didn't know you were doing all this. I know, I said softly. You never asked. For a moment, he looked smaller, like the man who once told me bedtime stories before ambition hardened his heart. I took one last look at the skyline before turning back inside. I think we're done here, I said to the realtor. He nodded. Of course, Miss Porter. I'll send over the renewal forms to your assistant this evening. Megan blinked again. Assistant. I smiled faintly. Yes, her name's Claire. She runs the schedule I used to dream of having. Dad said nothing more as we left. His silence followed me into the elevator, thick with realization. And as the doors closed again, I caught my reflection one last time, stronger, calmer, and completely free from needing their approval. This time, I wasn't the daughter who failed. I was the woman who built everything they said she couldn't. The city outside shimmered with lights, but inside my penthouse, everything felt strangely still. The echo of their disbelief lingered in the air like smoke after a fire. I stood barefoot on the balcony, the cool wind brushing against my hair, a glass of water in my hand instead of the champagne people expected from successful women. Success never tasted like victory to me. It tasted like exhaustion and silence. Behind me, I heard soft footsteps. My father had stayed. Megan had already left, muttering something about needing fresh air, though everyone knew she just couldn't bear sitting in a room where she wasn't the center anymore. Dad's reflection appeared faintly in the glass door. Older now, shoulders slouched, his voice no longer booming. You really did all this yourself? He asked quietly. I turned slowly.
Yes.
Every contract, every risk, every late night when I couldn't afford dinner but refused to quit. He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my eyes. I thought you'd fall apart without help. I didn't think that I'd survive, I said, my voice sharp but calm. That I'd make it without your approval? His lips parted, but the words didn't come. For the first time in years, he didn't sound like a man in control. He sounded human. I set my glass down on the counter. Do you remember the day you told me I'd never make it on my own? He frowned, thinking. Avery. I do. I cut in. You said I'd come crawling back. That the world doesn't reward dreamers. You told everyone at dinner that Megan was the real success of the family. He lowered his gaze. That was years ago. Yes, I said, stepping closer. But words don't have an expiration date, Dad. They stay with people, especially when they come from someone they once looked up to. The silence between us was painful. Not angry anymore, just filled with things that should have been said years ago. He finally looked up at me. I was hard on you because I didn't want to see you fail. No, I said softly. You were hard on me because you couldn't imagine me succeeding. That hit him. His jaw tensed, eyes glassy under the dim light. He took a slow breath. You're right, he admitted. I didn't see it then. I was wrong. The words felt foreign coming from him. For a moment, I almost didn't believe I'd heard them right. I'm proud of you, he added quietly. I just didn't know how to say it without feeling small. I stared at him for a moment, then walked toward the balcony doors again. The city lights reflected in my eyes like distant memories. It's okay, I said.
You don't need to say it.
I didn't do this to make you proud. I did it to stop being broken. He nodded slowly, his voice hoarse. You sound like your mother. That made me pause. She'd passed years ago, long before I ever found my footing. I wish she could have seen this, I whispered. She would have loved it, he said. And she would have told me to stop being an idiot. That made me laugh, quietly, through the lump in my throat. He smiled faintly, like a man realizing too late that pride had cost him love. As he turned to leave, he stopped at the elevator and looked back. You built something amazing, Avery. Don't let anyone, especially me, make you feel small again. When the doors closed, I was alone once more, standing in the soft hum of the city. I walked to the balcony railing, breathing in the cold night air. Somewhere far below, car horns blended into the hum of life, reminding me how far I'd come from the girl who once counted pennies at a diner. For the first time, I didn't feel angry. I felt healed. The revenge wasn't about humiliation.
It was about peace.
And tonight, I finally had it. Morning light crept through the glass walls, brushing across the penthouse in soft gold. I hadn't slept. Not because of restlessness, but because peace, after years of struggle, felt almost too quiet. I made coffee the same way I used to when I lived in that rundown studio apartment. Cheap beans, no sugar, just habit. Except now, the view was different. Back then, it was peeling paint and noisy neighbors. Now it was the skyline. A view people paid millions for. My phone buzzed on the counter. Megan's name flashed across the screen. For a moment, I hesitated. But curiosity won. Can we talk? The message read. An hour later, she showed up, no makeup, no staged confidence, no laughter at my expense. Just Megan, standing at my door like a stranger who wasn't sure she was welcome. I opened it. You came early. I didn't sleep either, she murmured. Can I come in? I nodded and stepped aside. She entered slowly, eyes scanning the place like she still couldn't believe it was real. It's beautiful, she whispered. Everything about it, it's so you. Thanks, I said simply, pouring her a cup of coffee. She took it with shaky hands. Avery, I owe you an apology. I leaned against the counter, studying her. You don't owe me anything. Yes, I do. Her voice cracked. I was awful to you. I laughed when Dad mocked you. I ignored your calls when you needed someone to believe in you. I thought you were lost. I said nothing. I'd imagined this conversation 100 times, every version ending with anger, revenge, or a perfectly timed comeback. But now, looking at her tear-streaked face, I didn't want any of that. I was jealous, she admitted, lowering her head. You had courage. You failed, yes, but you kept going.
And I
never did. I just played it safe, trying to keep Dad happy. Her confession hung heavy between us. For a moment, I saw us, as we used to be, two girls sitting cross-legged on the bedroom floor, dreaming about growing up. Before life turned competition into a battlefield. Megan, I said softly, I didn't build all this to prove you wrong. She looked up. Then why did you? I smiled faintly. To prove I wasn't what you all said I was. Her lip trembled. And now that you have it, what do you feel? I glanced at the skyline. Free. Silence stretched between us, comfortable this time. The kind of silence that healed, not hurt. She finally nodded. You're stronger than any of us ever gave you credit for. I chuckled lightly. Took you long enough to notice. We both laughed, a small, genuine sound that felt like the first piece of our childhood finding its way back. Then Megan's tone shifted, serious again. Dad told me he's selling the old house. Said it feels empty now. I swallowed. Maybe it's time. She looked down at her cup. He regrets everything, Avery. He told me he wishes he could take it all back. I turned away, blinking against the sudden sting in my eyes. Regret doesn't rewrite history. No, she said gently. But maybe it starts a new one. Her words landed deep. I walked to the balcony. The same spot I'd stood on last night, the same wind wrapping around me. Do you know what the hardest part was, Megan? I asked quietly. She shook her head. It wasn't the nights I went hungry.
It wasn't the people who doubted me.
It was realizing that my own family, people I loved, saw me as a joke. That broke me in ways success can't fully fix. Megan's eyes glistened. I know, she whispered, and I'll spend every day trying to make it right. Something inside me softened. I reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder. Then, that's enough. We stood there for a while. Two sisters, once divided by pride and pain, now bound again by something real. The elevator chimed softly in the background. Dad stepped out. He looked older in the daylight, tired but humble. No arrogance, no sarcasm. Just quiet remorse. I wasn't sure if I'd be welcome, he said carefully. I turned toward him. You're always welcome, Dad. You just have to come with respect this time. He nodded slowly, his eyes glistening. I deserve that. He looked around the penthouse, his voice low. You did what I couldn't. You made something from nothing. I'm proud of you, Avery. It was simple, but it hit harder than I expected. For a moment, I just stared at him. Years of hurt clashed with the warmth in his tone. Finally, I said, I didn't need to hear that, but it still means everything. He smiled faintly. I'm glad. We sat together for a few minutes, the three of us, drinking coffee in silence. Not as rivals or strangers, but as people who finally understood each other. When they left later that morning, the elevator doors closed softly, and I stood alone again in my glass palace. But this time, I didn't feel alone. I walked to the balcony, sunlight kissing my face. The city buzzed below, full of dreams, mistakes, and second chances. I took a deep breath. Years ago, I was the girl who begged for validation. Today, I was the woman who built her own worth. And as the wind swept through my hair, one thought settled in like quiet thunder. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't proving them wrong, it's proving yourself right.